Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Infuse Church Online. My name is Caitlin.
My name is Simone.
And we are so glad that you are joining us this morning. Our hope is to be a church for imperfect people to explore faith and find community. And that's at the heart of everything we do. And so that's why we are this online community here for you this morning. And we hope you can really find community with each other as well.
Yeah. We really encourage you to engage in that chat function that we have. It's there for a reason, of course. You can say hi and where you're watching from. Feel free to, if you have any questions, to reach out to Stacy, who is your online host today. She will be there all throughout service to answer any questions and share some helpful info as well throughout service. But just to get the conversation going, we know that summer is hopefully around the corner here.
Crossed. We're feeling it in Iowa. The weather's warming up today.
Finally, some snow is melting, which is great. And so this is probably the time where people are starting to think about maybe some summer vacations. And so if you have any summer or spring vacations planned, feel free to share them in the chat, and we can live vicariously through your travels. We would love that.
I know last week we talked about in the service like what your dream vacation would be, but like what are you actually doing this summer?
Yeah.
I know Simone, you were sharing a fun one.
Yeah. My husband and my parents and I are going to Portugal for a little bit this summer to visit some family there, and so that would be really fun. We just bought our tickets last night, which was so stressful. I'm sure many can relate, but
and we're much more low key this summer. We're like trying to find a little cabin to go to. But if you have recommendations of like Iowa vacations, I'd love to hear them in the chat. I'll check it later. So let us know what you guys are up to. This week we have Pastor Taylor joining us for our sermon series, I Don't Wanna, where we've been talking all about responsibility, and we're going to continue that this week with his message. He's going to share a little bit about like his responsibilities as our pastor and kind of what that looks like, and also what our responsibilities are personally to developing our faith and to growing and healing the brokenness around us. So I think it'll be a really impactful and informational message this morning too.
Yes, and so last thing we want to share is, even if you're just watching virtually and not able to come physically to Infuse, we want you to know that that's first of all awesome and totally okay, but also if you're interested in serving, there's still so many ways to connect and plug in at Infuse, even from a virtual sense. And so a great way is if you're interested in being an online host, you can visit infuse.church/connect and learn more about that, or you can even ask Stacy about it. She's right there. You can share a little bit more about her role and what she does as an online host on Sunday mornings. So
that could be you, right?
That could be you.
I know that we also often talk about groups at Infuse, and so if you'd be interested in joining an online group, we encourage you to go to infuse.church/groups and fill out Can't Find a Group, and we can team up with the other people you're watching with online to kind of form a space for community together during the week even. So a lot of great opportunities, and we look forward to seeing you guys after service.
Hey guys, welcome to Infuse. You're invited to stand and worship with us. My name's Matt. This is Britt, and this is Becky. We're glad you're here this morning.
Who breaks the power of sin and darkness? Whose love is mighty and so much stronger. The King of glory, the King above all kings. Who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. You laid down your life. That I would be You laid down your life that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. You laid down your life that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
As we sing this next song, I just want you to focus on no matter what you're going through, God is going to be there. And you're going to be surrounded in his presence. You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in ocean sea. My faith will stand, and I will call upon are troubled and rough waters. And we come and we just seek your presence, Lord. And we just know, no matter what we're going through, we can look above the troubled waters, and there you are, guiding us through, Lord. Help us to trust you and be with us in those moments. In your name I pray. Amen. You may be seated.
Hello, welcome to Infuse Church. My name is Stephanie, and we're really glad you are here today. Infuse is a church for imperfect people to explore faith and find community. No matter where you've been, what you've done, or your experience with church in the past, we pray today will help you take a step forward in a new direction. If it's your first time today, we'd love to connect with you. If you're in person, say hello to our first-time guest host standing by the first-time banner in the hallway. Not only are they super friendly, but they have a free gift for you. How much better could it get? If you're joining us online for the first time, fill out our online connection card because we'd love to reach out and say hello to you too. If you've come prepared to give today, there are 3 ways to do that. 1, you can give in person at the table in the back of the gym. 2, online through our website or Infuse Church app. And 3, mail to the address on your screen. Thank you for your generosity. To stay up to date with what's happening at Infuse Church and discover ways to make Infuse your church home, subscribe to our amazing weekly email by going to the address on your screen. Follow us on social media, and most importantly, download the Infuse Church app. Thank you again for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello. Oh, I'm on.
Hello.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Infuse Church. My name is Caitlin,
And my name's Simone.
and we are so glad that you are joining us this morning. This is how our morning has actually gone, and we are just thriving in it, thriving in the chaos.
Did we mention we're imperfect people exploring faith and
We are
finding community with
imperfect
another?
people exploring faith.
Imperfect, right
That
here.
we are, and we are so glad that you all are here to join us this morning. We're here to tell you
Yes, the top 2 things that you need to know here at Infuse Church. And so, Caitlin, what's the first thing?
the very first thing we want you to know is that we really at Infuse love all of our volunteers. There are so many people that make Sunday morning happen for all of you, from setting up the chairs that you're sitting in, to greeting you, to getting the food here on time, which is very important, we know. We come for the donuts, really. So we really care about our volunteers. And actually, ever since we started Infuse, which was in a coffee shop, now 7+ years ago,
Yeah.
I believe. So even from that time, the percentage of volunteers, of people serving at Infuse from our attenders, has been 80%.
It's a good chunk.
Yeah, 80% of you here today are serving at Infuse in some way. And so we want to honor that and just take time to learn and grow our volunteers. So we're gonna take a deep breath together collectively. Ready? Exhale,
Yes.
because we are going to refresh today.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not a yoga retreat, though.
Oh, no.
It's not. No.
It's not a meditation retreat. We're actually just going to take some time to eat lunch together after service, join with your team, connect with them. And then also, if you aren't already serving, if you're in that 10%, you can learn about a team that you might want to serve on. So you can join our First Impressions team to learn about what they do and the difference they make, our setup team and learn about the difference they make, and just learn and grow, or maybe switch up the team you're serving on. So that'll be right after service, and even better, childcare provided. So you can
How
really
refreshing.
refresh
Yep.
without those children.
Absolutely. So we hope to see you then after service. And so the next thing that we have to share is, so many of you choose to give financially or give of your time, and those ways that you're giving are making a huge impact here at Infuse. And so we want to touch on our ministry scholarships. So last week we highlighted Ryan, who is one of our ministry scholarship recipients, and what he's doing with those funds. And I'm with another one of those recipients right here, Caitlin.
Right here in the flesh.
So, Caitlin, what are you going to be doing with those resources now?
Yeah, and so our Be Rich campaign that we had this past November was able to raise a whole bunch of money and give it all away. And I was very lucky enough to be part of that that recipient of that money. And so I'm able to help pursue my goal and the call in my life to become an ordained pastor. And so to do that, it actually takes a lot of classes, believe it or not. I
knew?
wish it was as simple as just getting online. I'm sure I could do that too, but not as legit. So it's like a 4+ year process, 20 some courses. And so that money's been able to help me pay for those classes. I have 2 more left to take before summer, and also for the textbooks, which I never thought I would be buying again.
We have a back to school Caitlin era right now.
Yes.
It's very exciting.
Very exciting. But in all honesty, I feel very blessed and very lucky to have the support of Infuse and your generosity, because it's able for me to make that dream a reality. I put it off for a long time because financially it's an investment, right? And so I've been able to pursue that and hopefully make a difference in many lives to come.
Absolutely. And so, as you can see, there's so many ways that your giving is making a huge change and impact in lives here at Infuse Church. And so, if you want to contribute to those changes and those impacts, you can give financially by scanning our QR code right here or visiting infuse.church/give.
Yeah, and if you're interested in serving and taking that next step in your journey of faith, you can head to infuse.church/connect to get more involved, or just come to our refresh after service as well. Our hope, though, through all of this, through everything we're saying this morning, through the service that you're sitting through, is that you leave knowing that Infuse's heart is really just for imperfect people to find a space to explore faith and find community. And community is at the core of what we do. We're not just a building, we are the people. That's what we believe church is all about. So for the next 3 minutes, we're going to encourage you to talk to those around you, not who you came with this morning, but someone new that you haven't met before, and answer this question together.
What is the strangest food you have ever eaten?
Yeah, we questioned this morning. Simone, did you want to share one of yours? She's got a few.
I mean, I went to Africa with my mom a few years ago, and there was a very non-vegan restaurant that was called Carnivore that we went to. And there they served all kinds of things. So I had like ostrich and other things.
Yeah.
And
Hopefully no one's offended by
Yes.
that. Sorry, I put you on the spot there. But
it's okay.
yes, share with those around
It was
you
fine. Yeah.
what the strangest food you have ever eaten is. Online, share in the chat box as well. 3, 2, 1, go.
first there was PlayStation, aka PS1. Then there's PS2, PS3, and now PS4. And that makes sense. You'd think after Xbox, there'd be Xbox 2. But no. Next came Xbox 360. And now, after 360, comes Xbox One. Why one? Maybe that's how many seconds of thought they put into naming it.
Can you get the butter, please?
Yeah, however, with the Xbox One, I can control my entire entertainment system using voice commands. Up until now, I've had to use Leonard.
Then get the other one. Pass the butter.
Hang on. I don't feel like you're taking this dilemma seriously.
Fine, Sheldon. You have my undivided attention.
Okay, now, the PS4 is more angular and sleek looking.
No way!
It's true, but the larger size of the Xbox One may keep it from overheating.
You wouldn't want your gaming system to overheat?
No, see, well, you absolutely would not. And furthermore, the Xbox One now comes with a Kinect included.
Included?
Yes. Not sold separately. Although the PS4 uses cool new GDDR5 RAM, while the Xbox One is still using the conventional DDR3 memory.
Why would they still be using DDR3? Are they nuts?
See, that's what I thought. But then they go and throw in an ES RAM buffer.
Oh, wait a second. Who's they?
Xbox.
You're kidding!
No, I am not. And this ES RAM buffer should totally bridge the 100 gigabit per second bandwidth gap between the two RAM types.
This is a nightmare. How will you ever make a decision?
See, I don't know. What should I do?
Please pass the butter!
Yeah, we got it. So we've been in this series called I Don't Want To, my bad, that was not right. I Don't Wanna, and it's been a series all about responsibility, and I was thinking about kind of the keys to good responsibility, and one of them is good listening, because if you don't listen, you don't know what you're responsible for. And I go through this all the time with my kids. I'm sure you've never gone through this with your kids. This is just a personal problem with me. I say something that they should be responsible for, and they do not listen. For example, when you pay for a lot of markers and all this kind of stuff, one of the responsibilities our kids have is to put the and then you put it away. I know, you'd think that would be easy. And so, but we've struggled with it. And so, as every good parent does, every loving parent, they think, how can I help? Right? And so I thought the perfect solution for my children to be more responsible with their markers is to get them this wonderful contraption. I brought a picture right there. Wow. Isn't that impressive? I know. Aren't I a good parent? I know. Thank you. And so here, not only do they get to color the rainbow, but it stacks nicely. And so this way, we'd be able to determine if we were missing a marker, and we could find it, usually without the cap on. We could put the cap back on, and we could put it safely and securely into, I can't remember what this was called, this fancy thing, okay? And that was this fall when I was out shopping for back to school stuff for Elia. And so I brought you what it looks like today. And I kid you not, I have not changed it. I literally just grabbed it off the counter this morning, all right? There it is. In all of its splendor. Amazing, isn't that? Yes, I know what you're thinking. What is this, Taylor? I don't know. It wasn't there when I bought it. This has been chewed on two sides. By who? We'll never know. But it's safely in here. You know what I bet? I bet the marker still works on this one, though, don't you? Oh, wow. Never mind. Okay. Ooh. All right. So it didn't work out, was my point, okay? As much as I have tried, the markers have not been put away correctly, and that is what I would call, and what we've been talking about for the last few weeks here with Stephanie and Devin, that's what I would call irresponsibility, right? And we've said something every week about irresponsibility, and it's this kind of continuing theme, is that irresponsibility is a problem because irresponsibility becomes someone else's responsibility, right? For me, if the marker does not get put back on, who is responsible for putting it back on? Usually Stephanie or I. That's how it works, right? If the dishes don't get picked up off the table and put in the dishwasher, That's irresponsible, and therefore that becomes someone else's responsibility. If your coworkers do not do their job as they were asked to do in the job description that they got when they got hired and all that stuff, what do we call that? We call that, and that leads to you doing what? Well, hopefully, I don't know, some of you, maybe not. And so that's what we've been talking about for the past few weeks. So today, we actually kind of called an audible. I wasn't planning necessarily to be preaching today, but we needed to talk about some things as a church. So if you're new here today, it's your lucky day, okay? This is family day today. We're just gonna talk about some stuff. So you're really lucky day. So I wanted to start off with this question, all right? If irresponsibility leads to somebody having to take responsibility, what happens? What happens if there is no someone to take responsibility? We, so far in this series, have been assuming that, well, someone, generally myself or someone else, when I'm irresponsible, is going to take responsibility for that problem or that relationship that kind of went awry or that task that didn't get completed. But what happens when there is no someone? What happens if there is no family member to take responsibility and do the dishes? What happens when the coworker doesn't get it done and you don't have the time or the bandwidth or even aware that it didn't get done, they did not take responsibility, and now it has fallen by the wayside? What happens? What happens if there's no one to put the markers back in the container? Well, it doesn't work anymore, right? The lawn's not going to get mowed. What happens to the oil in the car if it doesn't get changed? What happens if there is no one to take a child to their practice or their events or to school, or if there's no one to take responsibility for an aging parent, or there's no one to care for the hungry, homeless individual? What happens? Well, this. In other words, or I'm going to use the term brokenness. And brokenness is a very broad term. At least I'm going to use it in a broad sense today. Sometimes in church terms, we tend to use brokenness or being broken in a kind of a singular, kind of associated with sin, that kind of thing. And you can do that. But I think today I want to expand your horizons just a little bit to think of things just don't work as they should. When someone is irresponsible and there's no one to take responsibility, things break down. Things begin to fall into disrepair, for example, right? Things tend to become out of order. There's disorder, there's chaos, and there's hurt. Somebody probably is going to get hurt. Somebody is going to get the short end of the stick. It's not going to work out. Somewhere down the line, because not only was there irresponsibility, but there's no one to pick up the pieces of that, it's now even worse. And it is a slight oversimplification, but you've been there. You've seen the outcome of a situation like this, right? It leads to, if no one's there to mow the yard, it leads to an overgrown yard. If no one's there to change the oil, you're going to have a broken car. If no one's there to clean the dishes, the house falls into disrepair. A child does not get to participate in the opportunities that are afforded to them, or an aging parent is left neglected and eventually hurt, or the homeless person goes deeply hungry. You've seen this before. You've seen the failure of individuals to take responsibility and then the brokenness that comes from that. You've seen that on the part, certainly within political realm. We've seen those, right? We've seen those moments when a group of people should have stepped up and they didn't. And we've seen those in companies and corporations when, they make a mistake or do something that they shouldn't, and then it falls into disrepair, and, they kind of take responsibility, kind of don't. But what's the end result? Things are broken and people usually get hurt. And the problem with brokenness is it ratchets up responsibility. It takes responsibility to a whole new place. I mean, think about that. When things are broken, then somebody's going to have to come along and not just be responsible and clean the dishes now. Now the dishes are broken. And if you ever tried to glue together a plate that's been broken, it's nearly impossible, right? If you've ever tried to repair an engine that's seized up because there was no oil or the oil was too old, I mean, it's just a whole nother level of responsibility, isn't it? You're in this new field, not of just responsibility, but you're in the whole new arena of repair and redemption and really transformation because of something fallen in such great brokenness. So today, if you're not a Christian or you're not sure where you fall in the whole faith thing and you're just kind of figuring it out, that's awesome. Super glad you're here. As Caitlin and Simone said, we're imperfect people exploring faith, figuring it out. We're growing, we're learning. We try to do that with a degree of humility. And so today, you get to sit, you just get to absorb, but you have no responsibility today. However, if you consider yourself a follower of Jesus, this is where we're going to have this family chat for a little bit. Because we need to talk about some responsibility, especially in relationship to brokenness. Because this is where Christians need to pay attention. This is where Christians need to get ready to act. This is where Christians need to be ready to grow and to be a little challenged and to become, fortunately, a little uncomfortable. Okay? So if you're not Christian, you get past. Christians, today is your day. Because the unique thing about Christians is we should be the people who step into brokenness. That should be something that kind of, in a way, defines who we are. When a lack of responsibility leads to brokenness, it's the people who follow Jesus that should be the first ones to step up and step in to those situations. Why? Because that's what Jesus did. And if you're following Jesus, then that's what you should do as well. And there's so many examples of this. This is one that you might have heard if you grew up in church a few times, maybe a dozen times or more. But the list of this goes on. This one in particular is of an adulterous woman. It's a woman who was doing something that was irresponsible, and that would lead to hurt, without a doubt. And the religious leaders wanted to make an example of her. In fact, they wanted to execute her, for that matter. And so they took her before Jesus as kind of this test. But Jesus doesn't respond the way that they respond. See, Jesus sees the irresponsibility, calls the irresponsibility for what it is, and he loves in the midst of that. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning, John 8, and early in the morning he came again to the temple area, and all the people were coming to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. Now the scribes and the Pharisees, religious people, brought a woman caught in the act of adultery. How did they catch her? I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it happened. That's a question that I always wonder. How did this go down exactly? But all right, caught a woman, just, okay. I'm trying as a good pastor to, what questions would you ask? Me too. Okay. After placing her in front, her in the center of the courtyard. So they're usually, I don't know exactly where they are in the temple courtyard, maybe in the big temple courtyard or in a side courtyard, but they're in a space that is walled in and filled with people. It's very public. And they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law of Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. What do you say?" It was a test. Now, they were saying this to test him so that they might have grounds for accusing him, but Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground. And they persisted to ask him. So he kind of was sloughing them off a little bit. And when they persisted in asking him, he straightened up and said to them, "He," religious leaders, "who is without sin among you, let him be the first to throw a stone at her. You so badly want to make an example of her, but have you not at some point in your life looked at a woman in a way that was inappropriate or irresponsible? Did you at some point in your life ever think or feel thoughts that were irresponsible, were wrong?" And Jesus is like, "Of course you have. I don't have to be Jesus to know that. You're human. You know that. And so if you want to stand up on the pinnacle of righteousness and from there throw down stones to take this woman's life away, you better make sure you have the right to stand up there." And Jesus essentially called them out to say, "But you don't, and you know it." And he went back to write it on the ground. And when the religious leaders, heard this, they began leaving one by one, beginning with the older ones, the wiser ones, And he was left alone. And the woman where she was left the woman where she was in the center of the courtyard. And so now here's this moment between Jesus and this woman. And what did Jesus do? Everybody's kind of dissipated. Maybe there's some onlookers still. Jesus stands up and he said to her, "Woman, where are they? Where are these people who are accusing you? Has no one condemned you?" And if she said, "No, they didn't. They left. Didn't you just see what they just left?" And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you." This is God. The one man in this whole room that has the righteousness to stand on that pedestal and condemn her is saying, "I don't condemn you. Go away from now on and do not sin again." He called her irresponsibility irresponsible and loved her in her brokenness. He said, "Don't do it anymore. You know it's only going to lead to hurt. It's only going to lead to moments like this. It is not right. It is not good for you. It is not good for your family. It's not good for your friends. It's just not good. Don't do it anymore." The world and the religious leaders and maybe some people in the audience in that moment look at that brokenness as weakness. Because guess what? We look at brokenness as weakness, don't we? Oh, you didn't change the oil in your car and so now it's done for? You don't look at them and think, "Oh, they're just a human being and I love them." You think, "What's wrong with you? How'd you mess that up? What's going on in your life that you fell that behind?" That's what we tend to think, isn't it? We look at that brokenness and we tend to avoid that brokenness, right? We tend to judge that brokenness. It's hard. And you know what it's felt like to be on the receiving end of that judgment sometimes. When you did something and what you really needed was Jesus standing there saying, "I don't condemn you. Let's not do that again." And instead you got, "We're taking you out. We're done with you. We want to make an example of you. How dare you? Shame on you." Jesus, the world looked at that as a moment of weakness. Jesus looked at it as a moment, an opportunity to love. To say it a different way, he looked at it as a moment to take responsibility in a situation of brokenness where no one wanted to take responsibility. Everyone just wanted to point fingers. He stepped up and met brokenness with love. And that, oh man, that is hard to do. It is hard to stand up in a room full of people who think one thing should be done and stand up and do the other, especially when the other thing feels soft and kind and generous and merciful like forgiveness does. But that's what Jesus did. And he didn't just do it once, he did it again and again and again and again. I mean, the list goes on. When he saw a broken Jewish tax collector named Matthew, the rest of the world saw a man who had turned their back on their culture, on their nation, and every other Jewish person hated somebody like Matthew. And Jesus looked at him and saw a future follower, a future author who would tell Jesus' story. And Jesus said, "Follow me." When Paul was going through his first half of his life, he spent tearing apart families, Christian families, and condemning fathers and mothers to death and imprisonment and trying to stamp out this following of Jesus followers. And he did that with a zealous anger and righteous passion until he met Jesus on the side of a road. And Jesus met Paul's deep hurt and anger and fear. We talked about that last month. His fear, and he met it with love, and it transformed Paul. When nobody else would take responsibility for Paul's actions, Jesus transformed Paul into one of the greatest church starters, planters, visionaries, and authors that, whether you're Christian or not, like academics agree, he was a world changer, Paul was. And he transformed around the Mediterranean rim and Turkey and modern day Syria. And really started the transformation of the Roman Empire. It transformed Paul, an influential man, into one of the most influential people in the early church. Or Moses, God meeting Moses. Moses, the rest of the world saw Moses as someone who had committed murder. Moses saw himself as someone who committed murder, and he ran away for it. Moses and the world saw himself as not a great communicator, not a great leader. He had a mumble or stumble or something, and he just couldn't articulate very well. And what did God see? God saw the imperfect leader who was going to move a nation. Because God looked at brokenness, and he didn't look at it with judgment, he looked at it with love. And when there was no one else going to bear responsibility for what was happening or our wrongdoing, what does God see our wrongdoing as? Something for him to take responsibility for. And he did through Jesus. And Jesus died for our sins so that we could see very clearly God's love for us. To me, that's a leader. You see that today. You see that, well, every so often you see that, where somebody stands up and boy, they actually speak some truth and they're honest about it and they take responsibility for it. How does that feel? It's like a breath of fresh air, right? That's not normal. That's not how the world works, but it is how people who follow Jesus should work. Jesus followers should be the ones that step up, take responsibility, and show love. And the world, oh my friends, the world needs that. Your kids need that from you as parents. Your family needs that in their relationships, don't they? Somebody who steps up and takes responsibility. That's why I put the lids on the markers. Do I like it? Not at all. But I have a responsibility to love them even when they fall short again and again and again. Now, does my expectation continue to rise? Absolutely. It's a difficult game loving people well. This is a story of God trying to love people well for thousands of years. And it's complicated and it's messy. But he didn't walk away. He took responsibility. And we should too. We should too. Your marriage needs that. Your friendships need that. Your coworkers need that. They need that light. Our community here locally needs that. Our church needs that. The church inside, we need it of each other. And the world needs it outside of our church community. And as a church, as Infuse, I think we do pretty good. We definitely have some room for improvement. But an example I was thinking about was, this is a school. I don't know if you knew that. This is a school building. This is not a church. You are the church, okay? School building. We are a tenant, okay? I want you to think of landlord-tenant relationship, okay? We're a tenant. And we pay the school district rent, okay? But what's different is, if you think of the rest of the world, how many tenants pay their landlord more money? Is that a normal thing? Well, it is for people who follow Jesus. Because we see and have seen over years of our relationship with the district brokenness, right? It started with what? It started with kids eating cheese sandwiches in the lunchroom because there was a lunch debt, and if you had a lunch debt back in those days, you got a cheese sandwich. So what did we do? If you were there then, we raised money and we gave it all to pay off that debt so kids had hot lunches. And it was an awesome partnership with a tenant and a landlord. And then it was crazy things. It was crazy things like associate who got hit in the face from a student who had behavioral issues, and her glasses broke, and she did not have insurance, and we were raising money at that point anyways to give it all away, and the principal reached out and said, hey, we got the situation, any chance you could buy a pair of sunglasses or glasses so the teacher could see? And we said, absolutely, and so we buy that, right? Snow boots and whatever have you. I mean, on average, rent compared to giving, we give somewhere rough numbers between 2.5 to 3 times what we pay in rent to the students and the community and the teachers here in our school district. Why? Because we see brokenness. and we can help. And that's what love does. We don't think in terms of, well, they're our landlord, they're just out to, get us or whatever. No, we think we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility. Not for praise and admiration and appreciation. We just have a responsibility to do the right thing. We have a responsibility to, when we see brokenness, we step up and we take responsibility. Because that's what love does. That's what Jesus followers do. That's why Infused Church was started in a coffee shop, like Caitlin said, is because Stephanie and I saw that there was a need. There was a need for a church, a community of people that were welcoming to all those out there, the majority of people out there that didn't believe in who Jesus is or who God was, or they haven't been in church in a long time. They're trying to figure it out, to create a safe space for people to come and explore faith and find community. That you could come into our doors and bring your brokenness and your imperfection and your anger and your doubts and your skepticism, and we would love to help. Even if that means you decide at the end of the journey, no, I don't think that Jesus guy really was who he said he was. I don't think God really exists. If that's your end conclusion, we honor that. But we just think there's some truth there that we want to help you to understand and help you to journey through and answer any questions if we can. Because we want to take responsibility in those broken moments. And it's difficult and it's hard and it always ends, it's not a straight path. It is a messy path. It is not black and white. It is very, very gray. And we're okay with that mess. Now, we talked last month, if you were here, a little bit about fear. And we talked about some things we're going to change around here. And in the last 2 weeks, this is the family part of the message, by the way. The last 2 weeks, I've gotten emails, we've gotten murmurings and conversations, sometimes to me directly, a lot of times through other people sitting around you. And essentially the question is this: where's Pastor Taylor been lately? Did he leave? I want to explain that for a second. The Western church, okay, I'm including USA, Canada, Europe, is falling apart. It's not just declining. That's not appropriate. It's falling apart. Statistically, this is not just wishful thinking, this is just numbers. You can go Google it, look at Pew Research Center, look at Christian academics, look at non-Christian pollsters and surveyors and and they will all say it is like not really declining, it's free falling. In less than 30 years, Christianity, given current track, if nothing changes, will become a minority religion in the United States. A decade or two later, we'll be about 80% of what we are today. We will be a fraction. At the end of my life, the church will be a fraction, like a fifth or a seventh of what it is today. And so I hope you could see that as a pastor, as someone who thinks, gosh, this church stuff is just really good and this Jesus guy is really awesome, that could bother personally me and the leadership here at Infuse. That could bother us a little bit. That's not great. We shouldn't feel great around 4,000 to 5,000 churches closing every year, pastors quitting all the time. I mean, the stats on that are like, 3 out of 10 pastors actually make it to retirement. In Iowa right now, it takes about 1 to 2 years for a church that's lost a pastor to get a new one. That's a really long time. That's not great, a healthy experience for a church. Because there's not a lot of people going into ministry. And I don't think that's a good thing for humanity. I don't think that's a good thing for the future. I don't think that's a great thing for my kids. That's not the world I want my kids or my grandkids to be raised in. And I think we get confused because we see a few healthy churches, especially in urban areas. We see a few healthy, bigger churches or something like that, and we say, okay, well, Christianity is still doing okay, but it's not. It's just, if you take everybody who's playing for Team Jesus, it's not going well. And there's many reasons for this, and I know some people, and including myself at a season of life when I consider myself an agnostic, would say, well, it's because Christianity is really a myth, and it's just old wishful thinking, and now with science we've learned so much, we really just don't need that whole God thing. Those are not viable reasons, and I process through a lot, and I can help you process through some of that too, and we can learn together. But one of the biggest reasons, I think, for the biggest decline in Christianity in the Western world in thousands of years is because Christians have not taken responsibility in the midst of brokenness, in the midst of hurt, in the midst of questions and skepticisms and doubt, as we should. Generally, what I hear on social media and in the news is Christians yelling and blaming the world for the decline of Christianity, rather than looking at themselves and taking some responsibility, or more accurately, stepping up and taking some responsibility. It's just easier to blame everybody else. And so we are constantly, as leaders, as church leaders, not just of Infuse, because you have to understand, you all day, I love you all. But I got a boss that's a little bigger than you. And that's who I answer to. That's a biblical principle. And ultimately, I have to stand before that and say, here's an accounting for my gifts and passions that you have given me, Lord. And that is not just for the success. My passion is not just for the success of Infuse, it's for the success of the church and for light to be brought into the world for a group of people who are so passionate and so faithful. And so loving, that they see brokenness, they step up, and they take responsibility. So last summer, speeding this up, church up in Cedar Rapids that we've talked to, that we've worked with over the years, has came to us and said, hey, we should really partner together. We should figure out ways to do ministry and impact the world and love people more better together than apart. To which we said, let's sit down, let's talk about it. And so we scheduled the meeting to talk about it, and I wasn't there, I was on sabbatical. We scheduled a meeting to talk about it, and before the meeting took place, like literally the week before the meeting took place, their pastor got a promotion and left. Okay? And so the conversation kind of changed because it was like, hey, how can we help you now, right? Because we see there's brokenness. It's 1 to 2 years to find a new pastor. How can we help navigate this with you? And the conclusion of both our Infuse leaders and the Cedar Rapids church leaders was, I think we would be better really together. Not because we want a bigger church, but because we have strengths and weaknesses and we think we can complement each other and we can help each other. And by net, we can make the presence of God and the love of God a little bit more brighter in this world. We can probably help 200 more people find the love of God together than we can apart. And so the conclusion, so then I came back from sabbatical. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. This sounds all right. Lots changed since I left. You know, you think I was gone for like a couple weeks here. Imagine me coming back from sabbatical. It's like, hey, so things have changed, And so the decision was made that, hey, we should partner together, and not only should we have a church for imperfect people to explore faith and find community here, but we should do that in Cedar Rapids as well. And so we talked about that at our State of the Church meeting in November last year here at the school, and let everybody into what was happening and had Q&A and conversations, and that conversation will continue, but it has began a journey. And so for the last few weeks when people say, where'd you go? Okay, well, I said that this was happening, and so we're on an alternating preaching schedule. So right now, Devin, if some of you know Devin's up there preaching today in Cedar Rapids. And then Stephanie's going to go up there for the next month and preach, and I'm going to be here. Bam, I'm going to be here. Don't worry, okay? We're going to be starting a new series. It's called Resistible Religion, Where Christianity Went Wrong. It's going to be fun. It's going to be educational and hopefully personally helpful. But that's what's been going on. Not because we wanted more work, because we really didn't. We have enough. But because there are people that are feeling a little broken. And there's a church that really, without probably us stepping in, would not continue for a very long time. And so we had an opportunity to do this, to see something that needed fixed, to step up and take responsibility. And this is really difficult to do, and it's not always perfect, but we try to do the best we can in love. It's part of our responsibility. Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 through 20, the Great Commission, the last few words of Jesus before he left the earth was, hey, Christians, if you follow me, you need to go out, make disciples of all nations, not just the ones you like, and baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teach them to obey everything I've commanded you. It's not, hey, come to service between 10:30 and 11:30 and sit there, enjoy the message, grab some coffee, go home. That's not what he said. I know, shocker, that's not what he said. He said, you got to step up and take responsibility. To which you say, well, Taylor, that's great, but let me get this straight. So we're going to not only put great events on in the community, we're going to raise thousands of dollars and help and serve people here locally, internationally. We're going to do kids ministry on Sunday, youth. We're going to have a band. We're going to do production. We're going to do small groups. We're going to be educating. We're going to leading. We're giving, inviting, serving. And on top of that, we got to help now another church do that while they're transitioning and struggling. And in the midst of that, we're going to try to raise up new pastors and leaders and start sending pastors out into our state. I don't know if you know this, but it's not the easiest to get people to move to Iowa to pastor a church. I know. You'd think, well, the weather's great, okay? The summers are cool and easy. I know, but it's hard, okay? And so instead of trying to find people outside, let's lift up the amazing people that we already have here. And so, Taylor, we're supposed to do all of that, to which I would say yes. Because that's what love does. That's what God prompts us to do. And when we do that, we see lives change and we see the world change and we see smiles on people's faces. That is a good thing. That is a good thing. We need more spirit-filled people living out patience and love and mercy and grace and leading sacrificially. We're imperfect people. We're not always going to get it right, but we are sure going to be at least known for this. At least known, hey, that's the church that when there's a need or some brokenness, there may only be a few hundred people, and remember Jesus had 12, but there may only be a few hundred people, but they step up and they take responsibility. Because that's what love does. And I don't know about you, but I just can't imagine the next 10 years are going to be brighter here in Tiffin or Coralville, North Liberty area, that the world is going to be a brighter place without authentic followers of Christ bringing that kind of love into the world. I just don't think it's going to be a brighter place. That's not a world I want to imagine. And so I want you to be a part of changing that. And we are not going to change the overall trend, but we are going to start being a light in a new direction. Like this direction, not this direction. And that means we individually have to take responsibility. That means it's going to be uncomfortable. That means Taylor's not always going to be preaching here. Why? Because my responsibility is here, but also to the world. Because guess what? That's his responsibility. And if it's his, it should be ours. And the world will be brighter. Wouldn't it be cool to know 10 years from now that there are 30, 40, 50 new churches or 50 pastors out there pastoring because we gave space for people to learn and grow and preach and teach and get messy and make mistakes, and we lifted them up. We were encouragers, not criticizers. We jumped up and we said, we want to take responsibility. When Caitlin says, hey, I'm going to, pursue a call to ministry, she's already got a master's degree, and now it's like, hey, let's go do more education. That's super fun. Yeah, we say, hey, how can we help? How can we help? It's not a lot, but we'll help where we can and help you live out your calling and go change the world, because that's what the world needs, and you know that, and I know that. There's a lot of different ways around it. I just think Jesus is one of the best ways. So please, let's be of the Spirit. Patience, love, kindness, forgiveness, mercy. Let's encourage. Let's step up when we see a hurt. You can do that individually tomorrow. And we will continue to try to do that better as a church tomorrow as well. And it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be comfortable. But love in its godly sense is not that. It is messy and it is challenging. But boy, this is a group of people I want to do that with. So before I cry more, let's close our eyes and pray a little bit. Heavenly Father, Lord, help this sink in. Help this to settle just right in our hearts and our minds. That we would be honest about maybe where we've been a little selfish individually and wanting things to not change and be the same. And recognize that sometimes if we do that, we neglect the brokenness that needs to be addressed. We neglect the brokenness that Jesus called us to take responsibility for. Lord, help us to not just walk in on Sundays and walk out. Lord, help us to step up. Lord, help us to meet that phrase, I don't wanna, with I'm going to take responsibility. Help us to see when we need to take responsibility and to also see sometimes maybe when it's not our responsibility. But overall, understand that it is our responsibility to love. To love in small ways and big ways when there is brokenness in front of us. Help us to make this a defining part of our church community. Help us to make this a defining part of a new church community in Cedar Rapids. Help us to be better together, to leverage our strengths and to lift up our weaknesses so that the world right here in this corridor would be a brighter place because a group of a few hundred individuals stepped up and took responsibility. Lord, it is easy to do or to say, but it is definitely hard to do. So Lord, be with us as we do this. Help us to be humble and learning as we step up and take responsibility. Lord, be there with us. Give us the strength we need, the people we need to do that well. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. At the end of March, we're going to have another all-church meeting. You're all invited, as always, so I hope you show up. We'll talk about this more. In the meantime, we're going to stand up. We're going to sing a song, and it's one of my favorite songs. It's an anthem of who God is and the Lord that we follow, and I hope it is an encouragement to you. If you're sticking around for the refresh, we're going to tear down as quickly as we can and go to our refresh event.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope and without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes, to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory, to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Spirit.
so much for worshiping with us today. Just a reminder, we do have those refreshes starting at noon. But besides that, go in peace, serve the Lord. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us this morning. It was great to have you and see so many of you in the chat box and see what foods you guys had eaten. It was really fascinating.
Yes.
I saw Kit, Sarah B, Sona, and Mary, and it was great to chat along with you guys this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's message. Sometimes change can be a really hard pill to swallow, especially for me. I really do everything I can to resist it. But I'm really excited for the growth that's going to come from the change happening here at Infuse.
Yeah.
And so I really encourage you all to push out of that comfort zone and for that growth as well, and taking responsibility where we see brokenness, whether it's in our lives or at church. There's lots of opportunities. So
For sure, yeah. But I was thinking like personal responsibility too, like
So
where we fall short sometimes and can meet that brokenness too. So that was a great message this morning. We hope to see you guys all next week, and we just want to take a moment too to thank you for your generosity if you chose to give this morning, and also for our online host Stacy. Thank you for serving. And again, if you guys are interested in giving or serving, head to infuse.church/connect or infuse.church/give. Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
so.
and check those out. But we will see you guys next week. Super excited for our final sermon series, and I Don't Wanna.